Back to State of the Union, we are following all the latest news out of the Middle East, but also here at home, quote, biblical destruction left behind by Hurricane Helene. Scenes of absolute madness, with neighborhoods turned into lakes in some areas as the death toll climbs to more than 60. Joining us now, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who represents one of the states hardest hit. So Hurricane Helene left millions in South Carolina without power, dozens dead across 6 states, I think. In your state of South Carolina alone, there have been at least 23 storm-related deaths that we know of. How bad is the devastation there? And is South Carolina getting everything from the federal government that it needs?
We had a conference call yesterday. I appreciate what the federal government's doing. I think maybe DOD may weigh in a little bit more. Massive, record-breaking, whatever adjective you can think of, 23 people dead. If you drew a line from Hilton Head to Charlotte, everything west of it is pretty well wiped out. I'm going home this afternoon with Governor McMaster in Greenville, try to get into my house. It's just bad, and we appreciate all the help and all the prayers.
And everyone in your world, your friends and family are okay?
Yeah, everybody's going to make it.
Okay. Let's turn to the Middle East. Iran says that Israel's killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, quote, represents a serious escalation that changes the rules of the game, unquote. Iran also says the U.S. is complicit in Israel's actions. How worried are you that this latest strike by Israel, taking out Nasrallah and Hezbollah leadership, could actually lead to a direct military conflict between the United States and Iran?
Well, we're one missile away from civilians getting killed in Israel and maybe Israel having to hit Iran. Blinken said the Iranian nuclear program was weeks away from having a weapon potentially. I think what Iran's learning from all this is probably better to have a nuclear weapon than not. Their proxies have really been hurt. Hezbollah, Hamas have really been hurt. So what I fear is they'll break out toward a nuclear weapon thinking that's the insurance policy they don't have through the proxy. So that's what I worry about the most today. Does Israel go in on the ground? Do they try to push them back across the river by military force? What's the day after plan for Gaza? Why did this happen October the 7th? Bibi said in the UN, Iran, through their proxies, Hamas, attacked Israel to stop normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And let me just put a fine point on that.
Well, let me just say that if that's true, if Iran did the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th to stop the normalization process between the United States, between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and apparently Blinken was meeting literally that day.
Literally.
Then has Iran in some ways not succeeded? Is this not kind of mission accomplished for Iran?
If at the end of the day, the time passes, the window closes, there's no normalization between Saudi and Israel to end the Arab-Israeli conflict, what Iran fears the most, then they've had a strategic win in the middle of all this chaos. So to my friends in Israel, to my friends in Saudi Arabia, Bibi gave a great speech about the benefits of the deal. I've gone over since last April 7 times trying to help this administration normalize between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Do not give up. Do not let Iran win. Do the deal.
So let me ask you a question, because you talked about a possible Israeli ground troop incursion into Lebanon. No decision's been made, we're told. The last time Israel invaded Lebanon nearly two decades ago, Israeli troops became bogged down, ultimately withdrew with really not much to show for it except high casualty counts on both sides, including a lot of innocent Lebanese civilians. Would a ground invasion of Lebanon be a mistake?
I think a ground invasion to push them back across the, I can't remember the name of the river right now, to create a buffer zone is the goal of the ground invasion, so they can't do an October 7th. The Red One elite brigade of Hezbollah, they need to be pushed back across that river. It's not going to be 2006, but how do you hold it? When you stop military operations in Gaza, who takes over? Without a normalization deal, the Arabs don't come in to reform the West Bank and take over Gaza. Without some diplomatic solution, Israel's going to be occupying parts 30, 40 miles of Lebanon to create a buffer zone. That, to me, is not the outcome I desire. Really, in many ways, that's a win for Iran.
So let me ask you, you're one of Netanyahu's most stalwart defenders in the United States Senate. And I know Israel has the right to defend itself. But when you see the images of dead Palestinian kids, babies in Gaza, when you see the images of flattened buildings in Beirut, in the suburbs of Beirut. I understand that Hamas and Hezbollah embed themselves within the populace and that Israel is defending itself. I understand all that. But what's your emotional reaction when you see your ally carrying out, Netanyahu ordering strikes that are killing innocent people?
Well, my emotional reaction is I go back to Iran is causing all this. It breaks my heart to see any child killed that's a victim of this conflict. I am focused like a laser. I talked to President Trump yesterday about this. We've got to change the game. There's nothing new about this game. You go into Lebanon, you beat them up, you leave, you go into Gaza, you go into the West Bank. It's different this time. But what makes it different is if you can get the Arabs finally to take over the Palestinian file, if you can put Iran back in a box, Trump had them in a box. This is a result of Iran running wild, having $80 billion of sanctions relief they used to build up Hamas and Hezbollah. Nobody in Israel is even talking to the Biden administration. The Biden administration is paralyzed by fear of Iran. In the name of not escalating, the world is on fire. So I promise you, if Trump does win, we're going to fix this pretty quick.
Let's talk about the Trump campaign, because I want to play something Trump said yesterday in a speech ostensibly about Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to the border. Let's take a listen.
Kamala is mentally impaired. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. If you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
Okay, so first of all, there are actual people out there with mental impairments, right, and that's insulting to them. Second of all, Vice President Kamala Harris is not mentally impaired.
No, I just think she's crazy liberal. I don't question her.
But what do you think about that rhetoric?
I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. 400,000 people have been let loose in our country. 16,000 people convicted of being a rapist. 13,000 convicted murderers, and 400,000 of people generally convicted of crimes were released on her watch. It's not going to get better.
So I saw that statistic. We dove into it, our fact checker. That statistic is actually over decades. So some of those people you're talking about are people that came into the country during Trump. And second of all, some of them are in prison. A lot of them are in prison, not ICE prisons, but federal prisons for their crimes. I can tell you
this, the man who killed Laken Riley in Georgia was released by the Biden-Harris administration on parole because they had no capacity at the border to hold him. That's not a reason to parole people. I promise you, women have been raped and murdered. People have been hurt by illegal immigrants released into this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It's crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress thinking it won't embolden Iran. It's crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan hoping things will be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying your policies are batshit crazy.
Okay, well, they're not my policies, and there's a whole lot of things you said. I'll just say she didn't boycott.
She didn't show up.
She didn't show up. But let's focus on Trump's rhetoric, because that's what I'm actually asking you about, because
the problems with the world are not Trump's rhetoric. They call him crazy. Pelosi wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment. Why don't you ever talk about that?
So Donald Trump also said this at an event on Friday.
If I lose, I'll tell you what's possible, because they cheat. That's the only way we're going to lose, because they cheat. They cheat like hell.
Okay, so in point of fact, it is anybody's. Tell me if you disagree with any of the statements I'm about to make. Okay. In point of fact, Harris could win or Trump could win.
True.
It's anybody's race.
True.
It's razor thin, and whoever wins, in all likelihood, it will not be because they cheated. It will. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of any cheating.
Well, mail-in balloting was a problem with COVID. I hope we fix that. I certified the last election because I listened to the allegations of cheating. I thought it fell short in terms of changing the outcome. I'm more focused on today and tomorrow, and here's what I would tell President Trump. When people look at the state of play, they trust you on the economy, the border, inflation, and foreign policy by wide margins. Focus on those
Focus
issues.
on those, and don't call Kamala Harris mentally disabled. That's your advice. One last thing. He has not agreed to do another presidential debate. Mm-hmm. Do you think that he should? For example, Kamala Harris has accepted CNN's invitation if they want to do another presidential debate. He liked the debate we did last time. He thought we were fair. He thought the rules were fair. Obviously, that was a very consequential debate. Should he do another debate?
I'm going to leave it up to him, but I'd like to see it myself because I think she's a mile wide and an inch deep. Look what's going on in the world. The world is literally on fire. They don't have a clue. They're paralyzed by fear when it comes to Iran. The world that Trump left us when he left office was mortgage rates below 3%, a secure border, peace agreements, no war anywhere. I would like to see her explain how she's going to change things when she's been in charge for 4 years and hasn't changed anything. I'd like to know from her point of view what did happen in the Mideast. Why do you think the world's on fire? Why do you think Russia invaded Ukraine? Have you not figured this out yet? That you're weak in the eyes of all of our enemies? And here's what I would say to Trump. If you do debate her, she is a mile wide and an inch deep, and you can prove that.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham, a strong defense there of former President Trump's policies, if not his rhetoric on the campaign trail.